start. Hello to everyone. This is Benny from Jakarta, and I would like to thank for all of you to join the webinar. We are going to start the session right now. So at the first start, that all of you will be in the mute process, so you will be only hearing my voice, and especially for the attendee, you will see your panel on your right hand, and yeah, that's yeah. We have already 5 countries. If I'm not mistaken, we have Brunei already, we have Singapore, we have Malaysia, we have Thailand and Myanmar, and also we have Laos, but seems like Mr. Luke is in difficulty to running. I hope he will be able to join with us in a few minutes. Here, myself in Jakarta, that's Benny. That we will also have our colleague from Irena in Abu Dhabi, Mr. Yongcheng, and Mr. Dega in Bonn.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone. This is Dega again. Irene.
So I will open for everyone just to starting that everyone can speak, and just to hear all of your voice. That's
Say hello.
Hello.
yeah. Hello. I put everyone in the speaking mode, so actually now you can speak. That's just to make the list of attendee, please. Anyone can speak. We are going to have a, let's say, 15 minutes trial to make all of you familiar with the process, familiar with the panel. So if your microphone is active, now you can speak directly. Okay.
Hello everyone. Hello.
Okay. I'm sorry everyone that there is the echo sound, so I'm trying to mute all of you. But let's say we started just checking country by country. That we have Brunei. That's Mr. Abdul Matin and Mr. Andi. Can you say something? That just to check your voice is okay.
Okay.
Okay, you first.
Hello. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yeah, I hear you, Mr. Abdul Matin, and then I also hear Dr. Andi Tabrani from Brunei. So we have that's Lata Singapore. That's you also can raise sounds. Okay, we didn't need. So hello again. That's to all. That's I thought no, I show you my slide, so I think everyone can see my slide, and I put everyone in the mute mode again. But if you have something, if you want to raise something that you can see in your panel, there is a symbol of raise hand, so you can click that. And then I will identify that's when you raise your hand, and then you may also chat with us, the organizer. That's you can see in the panel on your right hand that there is a chat, so you can click there. That's you can see. If you want to raise something or you want to speak something, you can also write your comment in the chat box. So I assume that everyone can hear that. So yeah, I received so from Mr. Abdul Matin. That's to hello everyone. So yeah, you can write. You can also I acknowledge that Mr. Wong put the raised hand, so I can acknowledge when Mr. Wong want to ask question. So hello, Mr. Wong. Can you hear me, right?
Yes, I can hear you. Okay, let's try.
Right, perfect.
Okay.
So yeah, I hope that's we are trying to familiarize the system right now for until next 2:15. So I show you in screen. I show you my screen. So this is our agenda. That's 2 p.m. and 2:15. We are going to have some introduction to make all of you familiar with the system, and there is after that I will make some short recap for what we are doing right now, and then I will pass our session to Irena, and then we follow up with the discussion and recap and closing. We expect this session for lasting maximize 2 hours. So before we start, that's anyone to try again any feature in the screen, or if you're okay with this one, we can start the session. So right now we have Brunei, we have Laos, we have Malaysia, we have Myanmar, we have Singapore, we have Thailand. So I think that at least we have 6 countries on board at least. So I'm expecting that someone will also join. What Mr. Luke from Laos is still trying to get in through the application. That I hope he will be able to join us soon, or otherwise we could start our session. So okay everyone, let's start our session. That the first webinar RE Outlook for ASEAN REmap analyst. So again, I would like to greeting everyone. Hello from Jakarta. I am Benny Suryadi, the research analyst for the ASEAN Energy Outlook. I would like to thank for all of you who already joined with us in the first webinar for the RE Outlook for ASEAN. A joint collaboration between the ASEAN Center for Energy with the International Renewable Energy Agency and also with our GIZ as a funding partner, and all of you for the focal point and working group member from the ASEAN member state. This webinar is a follow-up from our first working group meeting, which was held in Manila on 14 March 2016, last month, where we had our first working group meeting to have a discussion on the plan to collaborate to develop the renewable energy outlook for ASEAN by applying tools from the arena, what we call it the REmaps. The plan from our work is planning to be presented to the upcoming ministerial meeting in Myanmar. It's about September this year. So it's very important to us to work closely to develop a very good result, so that we can probably present it to Minister this September. So as the follow-up from the working group meeting in Manila, that we already work and communicate with all of you, that for the data that's to be filled up based on the template Excel that's developed by Arena. We already received Excel file on the RE data from all of country, but of course there are some difference on the level of completeness and also the level of detail in each country. Irena will present a review about what the data had been submitted, and then that's also explained and discussed in the Manila, that we are going also to discuss about the cost analysis and what is going to do for the next step. So I would like to thank again to all of you for the cooperation and then for the support that been provided. And for that, I will handle. So today, that we will have our colleagues, the same that we had in Manila. That we will have Mr. Degar Saigin from joining us from Bonn, and also Mr. Yong Chen join with us from the Abu Dhabi. So both of them will presenting about the result of our the data that's submitted by ASEAN member state, and also make some review and analysis, and will provide like some key point to discuss among of us, and also last but not least about the what is the next step that we are going to do after our first webinar. So for that, I would like to share the screen to I think to Mr. Degar and Mr. Yong Cheng to go to the next process for the presenting on this webinar.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. This is Degar Saigin from Irena. I hope you all are seeing my screen. Benny, it is okay, I guess? Everybody is seeing my screen?
Yeah, I can see it's clearly there. That's for all the others participants. That's if you didn't see the screen clearly, please raise your hand so I can something wrong or something or some problem with your screen.
Okay, so I'll move on with the next slide. So today, my colleague Yong Chen and myself will be presenting you the latest insights from the submissions we have made to the data sheets we provided, what data gaps are still missing, and what the next steps are in terms of analysis, and a number of questions for discussion. First of all, just to recall what the content of the study is, to look at the gap between the business as usual renewable energy development according to the ASEAN country submissions and or the fourth annual energy outlook APS scenario, which is in the order of 15%, and the gap to the target of 23% in 2025. So what needs to be done to reach that target in terms of sector, including power, industry, transport, building, agriculture, as well as in terms of technology, all types of renewable energy technology. The work is aiming to pay special attention to the modern energy access issue, as well as identifying what the gap looks like in terms of also its costs and benefits including air pollution, including climate change mitigation, but also socioeconomic benefits such as employment. The work plan and timeline for the outlook, we are at the third step now of the April 2016 webinar, as I mentioned, focusing on data and next steps in analysis. A few other webinars are being planned next month and in 2 months, and a second workshop in June 2016, which was actually originally planned for August, but given the timeline, we are discussing at the moment to pull this back to June, where we are going to be focusing on the REmap tool, the methodology, so basically introducing more insights from that to you, as well as reviewing the report. Now let's have a look at the details of the purpose of this webinar. The first, what we will show will be to present the status of the data by country and some preliminary findings, discuss how we can fill in the missing data. For today and for the business as usual, we call the business as usual or the baseline as reference case in this study. And then as a next step, look at the methodology of REmap. So REmap, what I mean by REmap is what we still need to do more in terms of renewable energy on top of the reference case to close the gap to the regional target of 23%. And we already have a quite detailed data list available at IRENA, but also from other sources about how to do this, how to estimate this REmap. Of course, all of this to be done in consultation with you and also a review of you. So basically, this is the purpose and the steps we will cover in this webinar. Now let's start with the status of the data availability based on the country submissions. We've split that into three timeline: 2010, 2014, the latest data available for, as well as the reference case, what we call, as I mentioned, the baseline. I have already mentioned a number of cases. In the below, you see where data detail level is different than other countries. In the table, a check means data is available for that country. And as you see, for 2013 and 14, we are nearly complete. And for the reference case, also, we are on good track in terms of the data coverage. There are still a number of points which needs to be filled, which I mentioned below. But all in all, I think we are in good track in terms of both power generation, but also total final consumption, energy use in the different end-use sectors, so industry, transport, and buildings. We'll take a look at in more detail the data needs later. This is the overview of the data submitted by the experts on the total electricity generation today, so 2013, 14, or 15, depending on the country, and 2030, according to the reference case. It's plotted in terawatt hours per year by country. And on the right side, you see the renewable energy share in 2030 in that country based on the power generation mix. At the moment, for reference case or the business as usual, we are missing data from a number of countries. But if you look at the renewable energy share in 2030, it's in the order of 10 to 30%. There's a large growth in generation in all countries. For example, Laos is already 100% renewable energy share with lots of hydro, and some countries are starting or also with their renewable energy share increase. And what we see a significant increase in the total power generation in nearly all countries. For example, Philippines more than doubling, Indonesia also significantly increasing by 1.5 to 2 times between today and 2030. Now let's look at the total primary energy supply. Again, same time frame between today and 2030. Likewise, also the renewable energy share in 2030. I have to tell you that this total primary energy supply includes the traditional uses of bioenergy. So what we discussed in the first working group meeting in Manila, the uses of bioenergy in the residential sector for cooking and also for heating. It makes a big difference whether you account for this or not when you talk about renewable energy share. So if you would have excluded it from this figure, the black dots which you see for 2030 renewable energy shares would be much lower. There are a number of data points which we are missing from some countries, but again, I think we are on good track in terms of the data. In terms of the growth rate of the total primary energy supply, it's a bit different than what you see for the power generation. The growth is less, as you see in the previous slide. The growth of electricity generation was 2 times, even in some countries 3 times. Here, the primary energy supply is a little bit different. And that's because electrification or electricity is increasing much faster than the demand for energy for other purposes. And the total primary energy supply also, depending on how you estimate, can differ quite a bit. This figure is based on the IEA method, the International Energy Agency method of expressing total primary energy supply. And there, for example, for Philippines and Indonesia, there is an important change depending on this method, because these countries have high geothermal power, and for geothermal power, the assumed efficiency is 10%. So basically, you need to multiply generated electricity by 10 to convert it to primary energy, and that makes an important difference. So that's perhaps a point which I would like to receive your feedback about, what type of primary energy method which is being used in your countries or also otherwise in the region as a whole. As I mentioned earlier in the first working group meeting, the system boundary of the IRENA analysis is total final energy consumption. It's a little bit different than the primary energy supply because it is looking at the electricity consumed, not what type of fuel you use in total to generate that electricity. So it's really the energy needed by the final consumers. This is our IRENA system boundary, but of course we are going to express in the study both, in both primary energy supply and in also final energy. The growth rates are in similar order, the total final energy demand, but this has some implications on the RE share. For example, Laos has 15% renewable energy share, 100% from electricity consumed, and some other renewables used in the end-use sectors. Likewise, Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia are also in the order of 5 to 15% renewable share in the total final energy consumption. If you look at the primary supply, this is a little bit different, but the target is in primary energy supply, so we will keep expressing based on that. Now, short overview of the key data which we are still expecting from the countries. If, for example, in the case of Brunei, if there's more data about the amount of bioenergy used in different sectors, that would be something which we would still like to learn. In the case of Cambodia, some commodity prices will be needed. Energy prices, energy commodity prices such as coal, oil, this data is missing. Indonesia is more or less complete. In the case of Laos, what we've seen was a significant increase in the demand for energy, especially electricity, nearly a tenfold increase. So that's something we would like to understand, whether this is used for more exports or maybe the demand is also increasing similarly fast. So that's a question. In the case of Malaysia, we are waiting on the fuel use breakdown in end-use sectors. From Myanmar, we're still waiting for the data on the template we shared. Commodity prices are missing in Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand. That's a data point we need to fill in. And finally, for the case of Vietnam, some end-use sector data is missing. So overall, this is a summary. I think we are in good shape. As I mentioned, 2/3 of the total data need is there. Some energy and a bit of commodity price data from some countries will be required. We can provide, I think, Benny, please correct me if I'm wrong, more specific feedback to each country expert based on the data we need, but I just wanted to show in this slide where we stand. In terms of the next step to fill in this data gaps for the reference case, we would like to finalize this by end of this week, so that's 22nd of April, so that gives us 4 more days to fill in these data at sector level demand and power generation for the 2030 reference case, to be able to finalize where we are standing in the baseline in terms of total primary supply in the region, but also by country, because that's where we will be looking at next after that reference case to see the additional potential. So we really need to know where we are heading in 2025 and 2030 according to the baseline. If the data will not be possible to fill in for any reason, not available, or the detail level which is needed is not possible at the time being, we are discussing with ACE how to fill in those gaps with the annual energy outlook for data. But that will also require some cross checks, of course. But this will be the next option. So, is there any question up to now? Because I will move on otherwise with the additional potential, how to estimate that. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer at the moment. Okay, I will then continue. I would like to continue with the methodology again to explain you the whole study, just to as a reminder, but also to explain you how to estimate the additional potential of renewables beyond the reference case. So what we can still do more in order to be able to close the gap to the renewable energy target of 23%. So, as I mentioned, the idea of REmap is to estimate the potential cost and benefits of renewables. It's an options analysis, is not a target setting exercise, and it covers the entire energy system, which means we need to find technology options for power sector in 2030, what can be done more in power sector, but also in the sectors of industry, transport, and buildings. And what is the most important is that all of this analysis will be built on your inputs, on the experts of the countries. Just to look at the steps, I just explained you what we were doing in the red box. So that's the renewable energy outlook according to the government plan. So that's the reference case. We talked about the targets, we talked about the developments, and the next step will be to estimate the additional renewable energy deployment options. That's today's discussion, and also what that means in terms of cost, benefits, investments, and so on. There are a number of different data points which are originating. This requires cost of technologies, of renewable energy technologies, commodity prices, as I mentioned, explained, it's key because that is very important to be able to estimate the cost of each technology. IRENA has a technology database already from our costing alliance, but also already the REmap work. There is quite some information that I will show that to you later. And also how much potential exists in each country in different sectors for different renewable energy resources. So if you see on the bottom, there is the potential that's indicated with the, say, the dark green box. That's number one, step number one, to estimate how much we can do more on top of the reference case that we call the REmap option. And then the next step is how much that costs. That based on the fuel prices in the countries, that is based on the capex, the capital cost of the technologies, the resource availability, so capacity factors, full load hours of wind, solar, and so on. And finally, we also estimate the benefits related to that in terms of human health and carbon dioxide emissions. So we combine the potential and the costs for each REmap option. What I mentioned in the previous figure, as I mentioned, there's a number of considerations while we estimate the REmap options by technology and sector. You see those on the bottom. The additional potential of renewable energy technology is based on the availability of the resource, is based on the policy environment in the country by 2030, energy policy environment, climate policy. The growth in demand, how fast the demand for energy is growing, is there sufficient renewable energy potential to meet that demand? Where is that renewable energy potential? In which part of the country? Is it accessible easily? But also access to finance availability and also human resource needs and supply to be able to implement those options, operate them. The capacity for manufacturing of equipment of renewable energy. So is there sufficient capacity to produce the amount of, say, PV modules, wind equipment? What is the age of the capital stock in the country? So what is the age of the different power plants? How fast new power plants are being implemented? How fast power plants or capacity is being retired? So the need for new capacity. And how much does the cost of the technology in 2030? So there's a number of considerations. We take into account different criteria while we estimate the REmap option. Why I'm explaining all of this is because REmap option is not a technical or a theoretical potential of renewable energy. It is the realistic. So how much each country can do realistically. So it's very important that we consider all these national circumstances in the country to be able to estimate this potential. I mentioned a number of times costs of each technology. So potential is one thing, how much gigawatts, but the most important then, how much would that cost? And we do that based on the levelized cost of electricity generation, just as an example. And we estimate the levelized cost of electricity generation for each renewable energy technology, but also the technology which that renewable replaces, because each additional renewable will replace one non-renewable, a coal power plant, for example. So in the bottom figure, you see 3 blue bars. The middle one, which is the renewable energy technology, is the levelized cost of electricity, let's assume, of a solar PV power plant. And that solar PV power plant, let's assume it substitutes or replaces a coal power plant. If the coal power plant levelized cost is cheaper than the renewable one, it will be on the left side. So option A, for example. Conventional technology, option A. The levelized cost of coal is cheaper than the levelized cost of solar PV. In that case, solar PV costs more, so it has a positive substitution cost, which is indicated with red. Let's assume our solar PV power plant does not replace a coal one, but it replaces an oil power plant, a diesel genset, for example. That's option B. So the cost of diesel genset is higher than solar PV one, so that means solar PV is cheaper and it saves while it substitutes a diesel genset. So it has a negative cost. It's a saving. So this is what we do for each technology which we look into. Does it cost more or does it save money compared to a conventional non-renewable technology it substitutes? We do this for power, for heating, cooling, and transport. And I mentioned the cost, but there's also important benefits of each technology. This is an overview of the different benefits of I'm sorry. This is an overview of the benefits of renewable energy technologies at our agency. In the specific work of REmap, we are looking at externalities related to outdoor air pollution, indoor air pollution, and climate change, how much that costs to our economies, and what would be the savings of that cost with more use of renewables because of better environment and because of less carbon dioxide emissions. But also with other projects in our agency, we look at the employment benefits, so how much more jobs are created, and what does that imply to the trade balances of the countries. So improving energy security and so on. And looking at what we look more deep into the benefits of REmap options, we have an assessment of air pollution of 5 different types of pollutants. We look at both indoor, that is mainly related to the use of biomass for cooking in residential sector, but also outdoor air pollution, especially important in the ASEAN region related to transport, but also power generation sector. As I mentioned, we look into the carbon dioxide emission related benefits, and we compare all these costs and benefits and investments by technology and sector to give an overall picture to each country about the role of renewables and its impacts on the economy. This is a very brief methodology of REmap and how we estimate the REmap options. Again, if you have any questions, I will stop for now and we can discuss this. Otherwise, I will continue with the rest of the presentation. Okay, I think there are no questions. Everything is clear. So now let's have a look at what type of data is available from IRENA, but also other sources to estimate the additional potential of renewables in the ASEAN countries. First of all, we have some target data, renewable energy target data, energy commodity prices data, cost of technologies, renewable energy and non-renewable energy technology, biomass data, but also some sector-specific renewable energy roadmaps, such as the one which we have for the manufacturing industries. Let's start with the renewable energy targets data. I did not indicate it here, the targets, but we have the renewable energy target setting report, which was released last year, covering all the countries. And what we've seen there's a electricity renewable energy target for the power generation sector for all countries, but also importantly for a lot of the countries related to the transport sector. So we expect that these targets are already covered in the reference case of each country. So because reference case is the business as usual baseline that already considers existing policies and existing targets. So that's already covered, we expect. But this is important to know because it gives you an idea of how much you can still do more on top of this target. So we need to know where we stand in 2030 to be able to estimate the additional potential. I can provide the quantitative background information of this table later, but of course you know all the targets also. I mentioned in the first part of the presentation a number of times energy commodity prices today and in 2030. So we have a quite detailed list at the moment for 40 countries and for 15 energy commodities, a list of energy prices in different sectors. Type of different energy commodities are used: diesel, gasoline for transport, gas for heating in industry, households, electricity, likewise, and coal used in many different sectors. We provide this data from two perspectives: government and business perspective. Government perspective is the perspective which excludes taxes and subsidies on energy prices for all countries. So it allows for some type of comparability of the energy price across countries. It's sort of an international perspective because it excludes the effect of any tax and subsidy. And this table, which I'm just showing you, is displaying that. And we also have a perspective from the businesses. So that is including taxes and subsidies. What is the actual energy price which a consumer in that country? So that also provides an important perspective of what's actually happening in the country. So these two, we make a differentiation between those two perspectives. What is important here is this data availability can be a starting point for some countries where data is limited for commodity prices. So we can share this database. It's already online. I put the link here. Please have a look, and that may help. Of course, we know that the energy price is very different across different countries, but at least this can be a start. As a second step, I mentioned a lot about the CAPEX, OPEX, so the cost and performance of data in 2030 of different technologies. Again, a very detailed, a complete data set of technology costs for power generation, heating and cooling, and transport. So all sectors, we have quite a detailed data set. I'm just showing you the one from the power sector here. So what we have is for each renewable energy technology, and for all non-renewable energy technologies, coal, gas, oil, nuclear, diesel, genset, and all types of renewables, we have the capacity factors. So how much a power plant runs in that year, the lifetime of that power plant, the capital cost, overnight capital cost, so how much it costs per kilowatt, the OPEX, the dollars per kilowatt per year, and the conversion efficiency of that plant. So this is a data set which is typically used by countries as a starting point if there is no other information available. And of course, each country has different resource availability, differences in the cost of the capital. So what is important here is to make this table as adjusted to the country's situation as much as possible. So because the capacity factor differs for different countries, for example, a coal power plant runs in different hours across different countries. Likewise, depending on the quality of the sun and the quality of the wind, the capacity factor of onshore, offshore, utility power plants significantly differ, but also the capital cost of technologies very much differ across countries. So again, this is we hope that it's a good starting point for your data if you do not have or limited data availability, but what will be important is to make this as much as adjusted to the characteristics of the country. Looking at where we stand in terms of the data available from the country submissions, as I mentioned, 4 out of the 10 countries have submitted their prices for energy commodities for the current situation, which is very good, and we can use that to make a projection for 2030 based on either the US projections or based on the IEA projections. And as another data point, which is the technology cost of performance, so far only Brunei for solar PV and Malaysia have submitted the technology costs. So we have a number of missing data points in the cost aspect, but otherwise the data which IRENA has will be we believe will be an important starting point. And finally, in-house, we have done a detailed bioenergy supply and cost assessment for 7 types of feedstocks and for each country. Data is for 2030. I put 2 figures. The left-hand side shows you the low end of the bioenergy supply, whereas the right hand shows you the high end, so the high potential, low potential. And it provides the data for 7 types of feedstock for each country. The report is available, the data is there, you can have a more detailed look. If you look at the data, Indonesia has a significant potential of bioenergy, actually the largest in the region, followed by Myanmar and Thailand. At the moment, the data for Laos is still in, the assessment is still in progress, and likewise for Singapore and Brunei, so you don't see any data, but we are working on that. Otherwise, this is a very important data source to be able to show how much more biomass can be used for different applications in different sectors in each country. So, because you see how much there is residue available, how much fuel wood, how much biogas is available, which can be used for cooking, for industry heating, process industry heating, and also power generation. So all in all, this is a very short summary of the data which we have from our end. And then what is next? And the next is to consult you, the experts of each country, about the potential of renewables beyond the reference case. But before we do that, I think we need still some inputs on this also, because the assessment of the renewable energy technology potential in each country depends on a number of criteria, as I mentioned, and we are not yet fully aware of the data availability. But we know that there are a number of studies which looks at the accelerated renewable energy deployment in different countries. So if you have such studies where renewable energy deployment is significant, aggressive, accelerated, we would like to learn more about that. Also your resource availability, like I showed you for bioenergy. Many countries also carry out such studies, but also for solar and wind. So this type of input is very important to know where and how much potential is there. I mentioned a number of times on the need for energy commodity prices, energy prices basically, and projections to 2030, but also technology, cost, performance, accounting for the differences in the resources of countries. So again, this is the type of data we still need. What is important is with higher shares of renewables, the operation of the power system may change, or the need to operate the way the power system may change. And if you have such studies looking into the power system operation with different shares of renewables and analysis of that, that will also be very helpful. And on the web page of this technology, cost and performance, on the web page, there's a whole list of renewable energy technologies. You will see about 100 technologies there. If you feel there are some technologies which we are missing, which are important for your country, this is something we also need input on. So if we have missed any renewable energy technology in the ASEAN region and in your specific countries, please let us know so we can also include that to the list while we do the assessment. So once the countries provide us with data, we will, as IRENA, together with ACE, make a first assessment of the renewable energy potential beyond the reference case based on this information. And early May, we will share the results by sector, by technology, and by country for review with you. So we first need to get your inputs. We need to process that to estimate the potential, and then we will share that results with you for your comments and review early May. This is the additional potential of renewables, which we will be looking into to close the gap to the 23% target in the ASEAN region. So this ends actually the presentation of what is needed for reference case, what is the methodology of REmap again, and finally how to estimate the REmap options. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, we have also prepared a number of questions for discussion for today in view of how to estimate this renewable energy potential in the country. The first question is actually something we discussed in more detail in the first working group meeting. Perhaps if there are still comments, feedback on the tool data template we shared, please let us know. But I would like to spend more time on the other three questions, the number 2, 3, and 4. I would like to open for discussion among the colleagues and experts to be able to understand what are the drivers, opportunity, and challenges for renewable energy deployment in the countries. In the approach we propose to estimate this potential, are we missing something? What can we take into consideration further? And also, what you see as the main issues, most important issues to estimate this additional potential in the country. So, from this discussion, we should be understanding more what is important and key in the countries about the additional renewable energy potential. What are the drivers? What are the opportunities, but also challenges related to this deployment? So, thank you very much for the time being, and I look forward to the discussion now. Thank you.
Degger, thank you very much for your comprehensive presentation on the review of the data submitted by the country, and also considering additional on the cost analysis and how we going proceed for how we proceed further on the step to develop the RE outlook for ASEAN with REmap's analysis. Before we go to the discussion on your slide, I have a couple questions from colleagues that I might ask. The first from the Mr. Abdul Matin. Yeah, can you raise your question again so everyone can, and then also Degger can also responding to that one. Oh, sorry. Before that, Yongcheng, you want to add something that, from the Degger presentation?
No, not really. I think it's well covered. So let's open for the question.
Okay, good. So yeah, we have Mr. Abdul Matin. Yeah, you can speak that right now, Mr. Abdul Matin. Hello, Mr. Abdul Matin. Dear, that's just maybe have difficulty that's for the mic. That's but Mr. Abdul Matin from the Brunei is asking that regarding the abatement cost. That's are we going to do for the every country on analysis on the abatement costs?
Yes, the analysis will be for each country, sector, and technology, but it will also be aggregated to the total of the region.
Okay, so every country will have their own, I mean, that's a specific calculation for the abatement cost for each specific country, but on the regional level, we will also have some aggregation, right?
Yes.
Okay, get that. Okay, that's. We also have a question from Mr. Wonan Chansiri, and that's from Thailand, asking that again to presenting what is the definition of renewable energy by ARENA. That's maybe that's I can also tune on that.
Yong, would you like to answer that, or?
Yeah, sure. I can give it first view, then Papa Dagger can complement if there's anything I missed. And for renewables and defined, you know, the REmap, so we covered all renewable energy resources, like, you know, solar, wind, and particularly, you know, the hydro and large hydro as well. This is, so we were not differentiated hydro as a large hydro and a small hydro. And for the biomass, and this is another tricky part, is the traditional use of biomass or modernized biomass considered as renewable. We consider all as renewable, but as you can see, that's in the category. That's when we do the analysis part, we trying to use descriptive, you know, wording about, you know, the traditional use versus the modern use of biomass, but in the statistics, and it's all counted as a biomass in one category, and but that can also in some cases when it's needed, can split into two parts as well. And for the others, we can see very you know, no controversial, like, you know, geothermal, ocean energy, and so those are the very typical, you know, renewables. I don't think there's any issues in terms of definition. And David, anything else you would like to add?
No, I think this is all
David?
clear. Yeah, it's all good. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Young. Mr. Yunan Chansiri, that's if you can respond as well. That's he typed the question that's mentioned that traditional biomass. Oh, okay. So I will read it on behalf of colleague from Thailand, that because he doesn't have a microphone. So he said that traditional biomass data is very difficult to collect correctly. That's so. Is your comment on this and how we are going to do with that one? Maybe Yong Cheng or Diger can respond to that one.
Yes, I can start. And yes, it's in terms of statistics, this is difficult because it's non-commercial, and usually it's difficult to find a report, and because it's not considered as a commodity. And so this is one way typically and being used by many countries is to do the survey. And of course, in this project, probably it's difficult to do a new survey. But usually, if there's any survey has been done in previous years, and for the rural energy use, and that could be one option. And usually from those surveys, you can estimate the traditional use of biomass. Usually, you know, they collect and woods and the branches, you know, from nearby, or the residues, agricultural residues they can just use domestically. Another option is probably from other from the secondary data and reports and in these areas. And so this is what I can answer. And Deka, please, if there are any other ways you see, and how to get the data for traditional biomass use.
Yeah, I think I think what you explained is very important. Is to use different data sources and see what's out there in terms of the knowledge on the traditional bioenergy. In terms of data, but also what is also important is to know or to be able to estimate what is modern bioenergy. This is another route which we follow depending on the data availability. And the reason why I'm saying this, there are a number of data sets, country information, which allows to know the dissemination of, for example, modern and clean cook stoves. I'm talking for the part of cooking in this case. And if such information is available, because there are various programs at country level, which is trying to accelerate the dissemination of modern cookstoves, for example, and if such data is available, statistics available, we can use that information to be able to estimate at least the amount of bioenergy which is being used in a more efficient way. And that can be also another way to look at the issue. And if we know the total bioenergy consumption, if we know the amount of potentially used modern portion of that, the remainder can be assumed with this best data availability, traditional forms of bioenergy. So I think we will need to do a little bit of assessment. Of course, this is going to depend on the country submissions, data availability, how much is the total bioenergy use in the residential sector, how much of that can be traditional, that can be from different sources, and how much of that can be modern. I think from that we will need to make a mix to be able to come to a number which can be indicative of the traditional use of bioenergy. I'm just saying that indicative because, as the colleague from Thailand has mentioned, it is very, very challenging to estimate the traditional bioenergy. So in this study, definitely is not the idea to come to a final number, but to provide an indication of what could be the range, what could be the current situation and the situation in 2030. That's the idea.
Yeah, to add on the explanation from Young and Dega, that's I think it's also discussed in the first working group meeting in Manila. That's it's very important for us to know the number for the traditional biomass to understand the full picture of the energy in the country. But it's quite difficult to have a correct data. But we are trying to get all the information that we have. But also one note is that in the RE target is being agreed by ASEAN that the traditional biomass is being excluded from the calculation for the RE target. And the follow-up question that we have from Brunei that's asking Dega and Young, that's regarding the definition of bioenergy. Is it include the municipal waste to energy?
Yes, it includes.
Yes, it's included,
yeah.
And yeah, at the degradable fraction.
So confirm again that the waste, municipal waste to energy is being included in the bioenergy, and inside the table, the Excel sheet that we have circulated, actually we have that specific for the municipal waste to energy. Do we have it? Sorry, Dega, that's for the specific.
Yeah, yes, this was there. If I'm not mistaken, there is landfill gas, and if I'm not mistaken, now I don't have the Excel file in front of me, but I think we have the waste to energy for power generation.
Okay.
But if for any reason we may have missed this, or it was not in the template we provided, and for the country it's very important, we would like to know this further, so we can include it.
Okay, good, that one. I hope that it will the discussion on the biomass and also on bioenergy. And I go to the next one. That we have a question from the Laos. Dega, can you go to the slide with electricity generation? We have Mr. Litanoluk Laspo from Laos. That I put your mic on. That's. Do you want to raise a question, Mr. Luk? Hello, Mr. Litanoluk Laspo. That's. Do you want to raise a question on the electricity slide? Mr. Luke, that's do you have any question on the electricity slide? I think that's Dagger has already showed the slide on the electricity generation. So we are waiting Mr. Luke to raise the question on the electricity slide.
Okay.
Maybe in the meanwhile, when he figured out how to use the microphone, whether or not it works, and maybe we can have a discussion on the 3 questions and the Daggers posted and on the slides number 25. So first one, what are the main drivers, opportunities, and challenges related to renewable energy deployment? And
can you hear me?
Yes, right. Yes, please, Mr. Luke. Hello, Mr. Luke. Yeah, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, very clear.
Okay. I just want to make sure about this slide number 6, because we have the first thermal power project last year, and I think the numbers would be not 100% by RE from now on for the data from Laos. So we have to revise our data, and also we have to put the new numbers to the power generation share, because not only hydropower in Laos, but we have include the thermal power plant.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is very important to know, and indeed we need to revise this. So please indicate in the perhaps in the template what the number of generation and capacity for the new thermal power plants in 2030. Also, if there is more planned.
Okay. We have to revise, and we send you submit to you, not later than the 22nd this week.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Luke. That's we clear with that one. Before we go with the slide, that's the last one is from Thailand. We on the slide 23 on the bioenergy supply and cost. That's Thailand is asking. This slide is referred for what year, Dega?
2030. 2030, yeah.
Okay, that's just to clarify.
Yeah, so basically for each feedstock here, we also have the associated costs. So for example, in the case of Thailand, for harvesting residue, for processing residue, for fuel wood, how much it would cost to supply that also in 2030. This is also estimated.
Okay, good, that one. That's so with that we can go with the slide 25 and then get the input from the country on the question you put in that slide.
Yes, please.
So according to everyone, that in the slide show in your screen that there are some points that we like to get an input from all of you. Actually, we have 4 that we already discussed in point 1, and then I hope the country can able to make your comment on this discussion point. You can have from Brunei, Laos, Thailand. That's if you have any input on the discussion point that that you see on your slide.
Maybe I just add a couple of words to explain, this about this question, and because we know this is ASEAN and the countries is varies very differently, and a lot, and from like Laos to Singapore, I mean the drivers for renewable deployment is significantly different, and we know the key, more or less the key drivers, and here if you could, and from country perspective, update and ask of what's the key new or emerging momentum that's in your country right now, and especially after COP21, whether or not that there's an impact on your country's policy or direction of policy development and or economic development, and also the social the benefit you can see as since the solar panel being the price being dropped dramatically and being deployed more, and in the countryside maybe this is also creating new jobs. This is one example just, and what's the key drivers and what's those drivers, what kind of opportunities you can see and has been emerging, and but in order to capture those opportunities, what kind of challenges you would see or foresee that's in your country in terms of renewable energy deployment. So this type of the reason why we will put this question, and we just want to hear from you and to share with us the perspective from countries and the updates or latest debate or discussion in your countries. I hope this is addition will be useful.
Yeah, can we hear anyone from Malaysia perhaps could provide that input? That's Ms. Azza or Mr. Wong. Do you have any input on this one?
Yeah, Mr. Wong cakap.
Can you repeat your question, please?
Yeah, as explained by Yong before, that in the slide that you see, there are a couple of questions. Maybe at least for the second bullet, that's maybe you can share from Malaysia's perspective what is the main driver for in the renewable energy, the opportunity and challenge, and responding to any question or that you see in the screen.
Okay. I'm actually just like to mention, because in Malaysia we try to provide as much data as we can, but we still have some limitation because some of the data, even though with the Ministry of Transport, those information were not there. And then also from the Ministry of Commodities, there are certain biofuel utilization. Instead of going into the energy, they just inform us that they come in the form of liters using. And then we are not too sure what kind of coefficient that they are using actually to get that, to convert the data from liters into KTOE. So is there any way that Arena can help us in this?
Yes, of course. We can share with you the energy conversion factors for any type of energy carrier you like, and then you can use that for this purpose.
Okay,
No
okay.
problem.
Then we use that to do the conversion. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, the other, you got the jump.
Any other one that's have the input? I mean, that's Azza. You like to add additional view from Malaysia?
Hi, Benny. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
sorry.
Yeah.
The only challenges that we face right now is just data, because all the data is not under Ministry of Energy, so we have to liaise with all agencies to consolidate and verify the data.
So I mean, for the related to the deployment of renewable energy itself, that's would you mind to share any challenge that facing by Malaysia that could be added as one of the considering point in doing the analysis for the outlook of the Malaysia itself?
Okay, what I can see is there's the security of the feedstocks, especially for the development of the bioenergy project.
Okay, good one. Good. Anything that or other country that we will also have additional input on the discussion?
They have a comment to share?
Yes, yeah, please.
Okay. In the context of Lao, I just would like to know that how is the large hydropower development in Laos can help to reduce the air pollution. How can we access the number of pollution that now can help other country or other ASEAN country to reduce on the air pollution? This is what I am very curious on this one. If Irina could provide a kind of information to a kind of calculation, something like this one. You understand?
Yeah, Yong, can you respond to that one?
Yes, of course. I mean, it depends a little bit on what hydropower, what type of non-conventional, non-renewable technology hydropower is replacing, because different conventional technologies have different type of emissions. A coal power plant have different type of air pollutant emissions compared to oil or a natural gas one. But this type of information we can provide you, and you can see the impact of more hydro or more solar compared to a different type of conventional technology, and the impact on the reduction of air pollution.
Yeah. Okay. Please provide me.
Do you have any input?
พวกนี้จะเป็นอย่างนี้ไงกูขอพูดแต่เวลาให้ทำอะไรกูงง
Do you have any input from other countries? And I think that if I may reiterate again, that the second bullet that the question that you see on your slide, the screen, that I think we need to get your input on the challenge to renewable energy deployment in your country. We know that you're concerned on the data collection, but in addition to that, I think it's very important for us also to understand what is the challenge for the deployment of renewable energy itself in each country. So with that, by understanding what is the driver for the growing of renewable energy in the country, what is the available opportunity, and what is the challenge it's facing by implementing renewable energy in the country, that with that we will able to have a clear analysis in seeing the outlook for the country itself. So I'm very much eager to hear from the country, especially on this point, that what is your what is the challenge in the country? What is the challenge in Laos? What is the challenge in Thailand? What is the challenge in Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Brunei, and any other country? So, how about Thailand? Can we ask the input from Thailand? What is I mean, especially on the second bullet, what is the main driver? What is the opportunity? What is the challenge related to renewable energy development in Thailand? Can we ask the input from Thailand?
No, challenges is market scale. Very small market scale. So since sometimes you know, you mentioned.
Can we hear Thailand? Or Dr. Andi from Brunei, do you want to share your input on this discussion point? Hello, can we hear? I mean, that's is there any country that want to share the view on your, I mean, your country situation on the driver, opportunity, and challenge? That, if I may, I would like to ask Dr. Andi from Brunei to share some input.
Dr. Andi is away at the moment, but we can share some challenges, I would say.
In the context of Thailand, that's, I mean, that's I read the comment from Suwonan Chansiri that oil and gas price actually is a challenge for Thailand in implementing that deployment of renewable energy. You mentioned that high oil and gas price is needed to support the improvement, deployment of renewable energy in ASEAN, in Thailand more specifically. Mr. Wong, do you have any additional input? Yeah.
Okay. So I think actually for Malaysia, you see, even though we have the RE agenda to drive for that the RE for many years, I think, and then we still actually for that faced with many challenges, and one of the major challenges, especially recently, actually, is the financing issue. So I think this is the part where I think even the Abu Dhabi, the ARENA convention, we were discussing quite a lot on this financing issue. I think if ARENA can actually help us to give us guidance on how to ensure that whatever kind of RE initiative that we have can get financial assistance, especially from those international banks, which are what for the eco-friendly, which are sustainable. So this would be of much assistance to us.
Thanks, Mr. Wong, for sharing from the Malaysia perspective. That we noted that one, and then I think Irina will get to us to share some information on the best practice on that point. Is there any other point that any participant would like to raise? I think if not, that we can back to our main agenda on the already raised by Bega before on his presentation. That especially on the data issue, that how to complete all the requirement on the data. That's you see on the screen timeline. Bega, can you go through again on this slide?
Thanks, Benny. I also thanks to all the countries to share some insights on these, first of all, on the opportunity and challenges. I think we will come back to this point again later, because this is very essential for the report. Like, a number of issues have been raised by Malaysia on the financing issue. Benny mentioned Thailand, the gas and oil prices, and in Malaysia, the colleague has mentioned also the security of feedstock supply. So this is very important to understand, because while this study is a potential assessment study, so it looks at how much one can do more, on the other hand, there's all these challenges which need to be overcome to be able to utilize the potential. So we definitely need to have a good understanding of this and reflection of that in the report. So in the next webinar, perhaps we can focus on these issues as well as in the June workshop more. It's very important for us. But before that, let's have another look at the timeline, because let's also finalize the data issues as well as make further progress in the analysis. As I mentioned, there's a number of data inputs required by a country to be able to complete today's situation and the reference case situation in 2030, and we would like to receive that by the end of this week, 22nd of April. In this slides, I provided an overview of what is still missing, and Benny will be, I think, in contact with you specifically, and of course, if you have questions, we can also provide you support on what is needed and how we can fill that. And so that will complete the current situation baseline reference case. The next step is to estimate the additional potential, and in my earlier slide, I mentioned a number of data points for that we need. We need to understand your CapEx, your capital costs, your resource availability, your capacity factors for different types of technologies, how much that costs, and so on. So this type of information, which I showed you in the slides, from us can be a starting point from IRENA, but we need to refine those as much as possible to make it country-specific. So in the template which I provided you earlier has a number of other tabs which looks at the commodity prices, which look at the technology. Please also try to fill those in as much as possible. Otherwise, please use the IRENA data to make a start and provide us with your inputs. Plus, if there is any resource availability study, like what I showed you for bioenergy, such information is also available at your end. Please also provide those. And finally, if there are important accelerated renewable energy deployment studies, like scenarios for 2030, 2050, 2020, on renewable energy technology deployment, fast deployment, we would also like to receive those, because then they are important for for information for us to estimate the additional potentials. And all this data please to be provided in the next 2 weeks, latest by 29th of April. So a lot of inputs still from you, so a little bit more effort from your end in terms of the data collection and sharing, and then we will, as Irina, make a first assessment of the additional potential of the REmap options based on all this information you provide, and early May we will share that with you for your review. So you will know the baseline, you will know the additional potential, and then we will aggregate it to see whether the target is reached and what is needed to reach the ASEAN target. And this will be for your review. And you will, we would like to ask you to provide your review by latest mid-May. And again, we will refine this analysis and then present it to you late May. So in a month from now, in a next webinar to show you the additional potential of renewables in the countries based on your inputs and our analysis. So this is, in a nutshell, the very short timeline in the next month. So still some analysis and data collection to be done, both from your side and from our side. And I think I will then leave it to Benny the rest of the timeline, because we are also aiming for the second working group meeting, the workshop in June, ideally or possibly in Bangkok, or I think Benny has more information on that. So I will leave the rest of the timeline to you, Benny. Thank you.
Thanks, Dega. That's I would like to clarify. I mean, the first on the missing data input supply for today's level and reference case. So are we going to send them back to the Excel sheet, or what is the process that you're looking at?
Well, yeah. So I think the Excel sheet we don't need to send back, but we've identified in the Excel files what is missing. I can also provide by country what data is needed. I can make in bullet points. I can share that with you, and then you can share that with the countries. So it's very clear. Okay. And yeah, that would be for the reference.
Yeah, I think it would be great with that, so that country can go specifically what is the missing information, that so they can fill it directly. The specific point, the specific additional point requested from each country. I think we can. It's better to do that way, so we can work with all country. I mean, within this week, I know the deadline is quite tight for everyone, but I believe that we can work on that one to finish all the information to missing the to input the missing data within this week, or by 22 April, this Friday, to complete set one. I will work with the country on that one. On the second one, for the input for REmap, are we going to have a template as well for that one, or how we do that one, Dega?
Yeah, so it's already in the template to fill in.
Okay.
What we will do is to share with you this data I showed you today on the presentation. I will share the Excel files of that, and the countries can already work on those Excel files to make a change on the existing data. For example, we have a standard solar PV capacity factor, 16%, let's say. If the country thinks it should be higher or lower, they can directly change it on the Excel file and send it back to us. Yeah. Also, the same for the commodity prices, and then that will be one part of the input. But also, as I mentioned, if there are other data, information, literature sources for renewable energy deployment in the country, we would also like to learn more about those. I mentioned in the slides, I can make the list again and share it with you. You can share them with the country's experts.
Okay, great, Dega. That's we're working on that one. We have two timelines. At least in the first one is 22. Within this week, we will work with the country, and also 29 to have an input from all countries. All information template is already in the Excel file. I think we can work for a specific country, each country for the specific the Excel file for each country, so we can talk to directly with each country. That's for Thailand, what is the missing, what is the needed information. Malaysia, what is the missing, what is the additional information required from them. I think it will also help the country to quickly fill in the missing information with that one. And the follow-up that we are going to have also. Our end goal is to present it to SOMI and to AMEM in September. So we have a tight schedule for that one. So we expecting everyone can work with this proposed timeline. Irena will share the first assessment of REmap's in May for the country review. So you will have days to review it and come back your input by mid-May, and then we are going to have our second webinar in late May, and also the second workshop in June. I know we discussed this before in Manila, scheduled August, but we think that we need to organize it earlier so we can have share the result and have the input, a review by all countries. So that we can accommodate all the input by country and reflect it in the final presentation. And about the second workshop, that's tentatively is in Bangkok. The secretariat team is still working on the arrangement, communicating with Thailand as well. We have REPP focal point and RESSN focal point from Thailand to organize that one. It's not fixed yet, but we are still trying to make the arrangement with the host country, with Thailand, with the Ministry of Energy as well, and also all of you or colleagues from the Thailand. We will keep you updated on this arrangement on the second workshop in June. I think that's what I may add, Dega. That's
okay. This is all clear from our end. So Benny, I will send you specific data needs separately today, and then please share those with the countries, and we'll take it from there.
hello. Yeah, sorry. That's before we. We have presenting already. We have a discussion already. That's before we end this session. That's we also already discuss the timeline and the way forward. What we should do, and then after this we will follow up with each country, sending you the required additional information that we need from each country, and we will work for the next couple days until this Friday to fulfill all the information. And another one that we will also get in touch with Thailand for the organizing the second workshop. So before I close, is there any country that would like to add or comment, ask anything? But Mr. Wong, do you have any other input before we end this session?
No input. Thank you very much. We'll give you the one in return.
Come in, sorry?
No, we shall give you actually some of the information in the written form, especially the few questions that you raised.
Okay, good point. That's Dr. Andy from Brunei. Do you have any more comment?
So far, we have no further comments on the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Andi, that we will follow up with you on the specific additional information about the Brunei. Mr. Luke, you have any other input?
No, thank you. Right now, no, but maybe after you send me additional Excel file, I may have some questions after that. Thank you very much.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. Luke. That's Thailand, Ms. Supit, do you have any other input?
Community type.
Yes.
I will send you the community price to you.
Okay, good. I will follow up with you on the additional information that we need based on requirement from ARENA. Thank you very much, Mr. Pitt. And how about from Dr. Titi Su from Myanmar? Do you have any other input?
Yes. Thanks for your information and the presentation. That's all. I have no comments on that, but I just want to tell you, I will try my best for proceed your program because of our country temperature. Thank you.
Okay, that's thank you very much. I hope I got everyone. That Degger, you have any additional word to say before we close?
Thank you very much, Penny. Nothing to add further, and thank you very much for all the participants again for their time, but also all the efforts to share all this information with us. Have a good evening.
Yes. Thank you very much, Degger. And then once again, I'd like to thank for everyone for your active participation. I know some countries facing difficulty to attend that one. We also missed Philippines. Just received the email that the internet is bad and then they can't join. But I will follow up with all of you. I will also share the recording of our webinar today, so you will also able to watch it again, to relook it again, so you can learn again what being discussed. But on top of that, I will follow up with all of you for our discussion and then for our next work. And thanks for all, and then Happy New Year everyone also for our colleague in Cambodia, Myanmar, and Mekong. That's thank you very much for joining us, Myanmar. That's I know you are still in holiday for New Year. But thank you very much for making an effort to join with us. Thanks everyone. Thanks Degger for Young. You're already late, but thanks Irena for your presentation, for your great discussion. Also thank to all of my colleagues in ACE for helping me to organize it. For that, we officially end this webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.